Hello, this is Dr. Jambitsky and welcome to my environmental science screencast. Today we are going to discuss the book by John Muir, The Mountains of California. Hello and welcome to our discussion of the book by John Muir, The Mountains of California. So we're already familiar with poetic description of the Hetch Hetchy Valley and comparison of the Hetch Hetchy Valley to the larger Yosemite Valley. Unfortunately, we lost Hetch Hetchy Valley under the water due to a commercial project pushed forward by the city of San Francisco. So today we are going to continue working with the passages from John Muir's book. But before we go there, I would like to show you a brief video created by a non-profit organization, Yosemite Conservancy. And this video describes a restoration project to help to change the visitors' conditions who would like to see the Bridal Veil waterfall. So that's a good video. It will give us some food for thought, and also we will appreciate the beauty of Bridal Veil waterfall in Yosemite Valley. So let's pay attention to the video.
As visitors are entering the valley, this is one of the first places to stop and get out of your car and experience the beauty of Yosemite Valley. There's so many just beautiful trees and it's lush, and you hear the sound of the creek running by and just experiencing the beauty of a 600-foot waterfall coming down in front of you.
Obviously, Bridal Veil is an iconic site. It's beautiful. Everybody knows it's the first waterfall you see when you come into the valley. And there's a lot of other history to it as well. There's 3 stone bridges along that carriage road that were actually built by the U.S. Cavalry when they were here before the Rangers arrived in 1916. These are some of the last structures that still remain from the cavalry days in Yosemite. And so those will be preserved as part of the project to come in after almost 50 years of any kind of real investment or changes to make it better for the park visitor.
Some of the challenges that we face today is that the parking lot isn't designed in a way that allows a really smooth flow of traffic. The facilities are inadequate. They were not designed for the number of people that we're getting at Yosemite National Park today. The trails are a little bit narrow, they're not fully accessible, and it leads to just one viewing platform.
And then there's not a lot of signage there. There's not a lot to explain where you need to go, what you should see, and also once you get there, sort of help understand the importance of the site. So there's some easy fixes that can be done to make it just a better experience.
The Yosemite Conservancy has supported a lot of projects in the valley. Yosemite Falls, for example, Glacier Point, Tunnel View, and Bridal Veil is really one of the last iconic spots in Yosemite Valley that has yet to be restored. That experience can be improved. That experience can be so much more powerful. If they're being distracted by not finding a parking spot, not having adequate facilities, not being sure about where the trail is, they won't be able to make the kind of connection that one should make when visiting a national park. We are so grateful to have partners like the Yosemite Conservancy and their donors who are willing to invest in a project that's so meaningful to all of us.
And we're really excited to work with the park on this. We estimate the total cost is about $13 million for the project. And there's an opportunity for some federal funds from Washington to pay for half the project.
Bridal Veil Fall is just such an awesome, incredible spot. People come here and they don't even think it's real. It looks like a painting. It's impossible to not be moved. It's impossible to not be in awe of these amazing features that exist in Yosemite Valley. We want visitors to arrive and have their first experience in the park be positive. We want them to get out and think, wow, this is what Yosemite National Park is all about. As visitors arrive to Bridal Veil, they deserve a world-class experience when they get there, and that's what the Yosemite Conservancy will help us achieve.
All right, so let's think about what we saw. Obviously, the first thing that comes in mind that Yosemite Valley is really a popular tourist attraction. And it's also overcrowded. So there is another part of Yosemite National Park that is flooded. And many preservationists nowadays ring a bell and say, well, we don't really have to store water there anymore. There are other solutions. So let's drain the artificial lake. Let's restore the Hetch Hetchy Valley, and this will allow visitors to see this part of National Park as well. And it also will help with overcrowdedness of the main Yosemite Valley. This is some thoughtful thoughts, so to speak. However, let's find the spot in the Mountains of California passages. And the next paragraph here is going to talk about the second waterfall in addition to Tulalip Falls, which is called Wapama Falls. This is a larger waterfall and it's also amazingly beautiful. So let's read about these two waterfalls.
Here it is composed of yet finer tissues, and is still without a trace of disorder, air, water, and sunlight woven into stuff that spirits might wear. So fine a fall might well seem sufficient to glorify any valley, but here, as in Yosemite, nature seems in no wise moderate. For a short distance to the eastward of Tulalip booms and thunders the great Hetch Hetchy Fall, Wapama, so near that you have both of them in full view from the same standpoint. It is the counterpart of the Yosemite Fall, but has a much greater volume of water, is about 1,700 feet in height, and appears to be nearly vertical, though considerably inclined, and is dashed into huge outbounding bosses of foam on projecting shelves and knobs. No two falls could be more unlike Tulalip out in the open sunshine descending like thistledown, Wapama in a jagged, shadowy gorge roaring and thundering, pounding its way like an earthquake avalanche.
Okay, so John Muir introduces us to the second waterfall. The Indian of the name of the waterfall is Wapama Falls, and this is a counterpart of Yosemite Falls. Remember, Yosemite Falls in Yosemite Valley is the tallest waterfall in North America, taller than Niagara Falls. So Wapama Fall is a major waterfall in Hetch Hetchy Valley. It is larger than Tulalip Falls, and it also seems to have a greater volume of water and a lot louder waterfall. And John Muir compares this to the thunder sound. So let's actually go back to the maps and look at both waterfalls. Our next destination is going to be Wapama Falls. So from the Bridal Veil waterfall, which is in our Yosemite Valley, we are going to go to Wapama Falls, which is in our Hetch Hetchy Valley. So here we go. Let's fly there. Wapama Falls. I'm gonna minimize this for a second so we can enjoy the 3D view. And look at it. there is a Tuilala Falls as a smaller waterfall, and Wapama Falls right next to it. So the nature created two beautiful waterfalls that could be observed from the same observation point at the floor of the valley if it would be available. This is something that John Muir could observe in his time, but as you know, right now, because we have this enormous Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, we cannot really see these two waterfalls. They are not accessible. So here's our Tuilala Falls and the larger Wapama Falls over here. We can zoom a little bit closer. This is Wapama Falls right here. Wapama Falls. Wapama Falls is the larger of the two waterfalls located in the northern wall of Hetch Hetchy Valley in the northern wall of Hetch Hetchy Valley in Yosemite National Park. It flows almost year-round, and during peak flow has been known to inundate the Trial Bridge crossing its base. Okay, making these falls impossible to pass. Let's take a look. There is a trial bridge over here. Right, however, it's not accessible for tourists, so it doesn't really matter. Here is a picture of this beautiful waterfall. Alright, there is another picture with a trial bridge. And a picture with a rainbow. Here we go, another beautiful picture. I believe this picture must be taken from a boat. And this is just a picture of an artificial lake. And another one. Alright, we can see a little bit of waterfall. Righty, so we are back to the poetic description of waterfalls, and Wapama Falls and Tuilala Falls are not the only waterfalls that you can experience in the Yosemite National Park and Hetch Hetchy Valley. So let's keep reading.
Besides this glorious pair, there is a broad, massive fall on the main river a short distance above the head of the valley. Its position is something like that of the Vernal in Yosemite, and its roar as it plunges into a surging trout pool may be heard a long way, though it is only about 20 feet high. On Rancheria Creek, a large stream, corresponding in position with the Yosemite Tenaya Creek, there is a chain of cascades joined here and there with swift flashing plumes like the one between the Vernal and Nevada Falls, making magnificent shows as they go their glacier-sculptured way, sliding, leaping, hurrahing, covered with crisp clashing spray made glorious with sifting sunshine. And besides all these, a few small streams come over the walls at wide intervals, leaping from ledge to ledge with bird-like song and watering many a hidden cliff garden and fernery, but they are too unshowy to be noticed in so grand a place.
There are several interesting observations in this particular paragraph. So first of all, John Muir describes so-called Rancheria Creek in Hetch Hetchy Valley. And Rancheria Creek is a place where we have Rancheria Falls, is another nice waterfall to visit and observe. And Rancheria Creek is compared to Tenaya Creek in the larger Yosemite Valley, right here. On Tenaya Creek, there are two waterfalls, the Vernal Waterfall and the Nevada Falls, which are also very beautiful, very magnificent waterfalls. So another thing which is mentioned in this paragraph is a rainbow trout pool. Alright, and so if you look over here, so we are talking about a surrounding trout pool. And so why this is important? Because trout is considered to be the indicator species. Alright, so let me write it for you. So there are several indicator species, and one example is rainbow trout. So indicator species tells us about the condition of the environment. So for example, rainbow trout is very sensitive to the quality of water. So it can only exist if the water quality is very high and the water is highly oxygenated. So if the water is polluted, usually the level of oxygen goes down and the rainbow trout cannot exist. And so, for example, if you're visiting an area and there is a stream or pool with rainbow trout, so you can conclude that the water is clean and the quality of water is extremely high. Now, if you would come to the same creek or lake later and you wouldn't see rainbow trout anymore, you could assume that the water was polluted. So that's why rainbow trout is an example of indicator species. Alright, so we are back to the map. So we see Tuolumne Falls and Wapama Falls here, and now we are going to travel to Rancheria Creek, which is also in this vicinity, and we would like to see Rancheria Falls. So here we go. Rancheria Falls. It's a smaller waterfall, but it's also very beautiful. You can also see Rancheria Creek right there. So we can also try to zoom in a little bit. Alright, so this is kind of a cascading waterfall. On Rancheria Creek. This is what John Muir exactly describes. And here's a picture of Rancheria Falls. This is not extremely tall, but very interesting and very unusually looking, and obviously very enjoyable to look at. You know, there is some people are camping. This is another picture of Rancheria Creek Fall trees. Oh, and this look like winter season. and a little bit more trees. So very nice. Alright, so looking at Rancheria Falls, and now we are gonna jump from here back to Yosemite Valley, and we will see the Vernal Falls and Nevada Falls, which would be counterparts of Rancheria Creek. Vernal Falls, very beautiful. Vernal Falls. Magnificent waterfall. You can kind of see that this waterfall is emerging from the Emerald Pool. Which is just above. And we can also move a little bit closer to the Vernal Falls. Very nice. It looks like there is a picture here of Vernal Falls. Beautiful, about 300 feet, Vernal Falls. Okay, nice. And let's now travel to Nevada Falls, which is in a very close, and the Nevada Falls would be just upstream of the Vernal Falls. So let's look at it. It's right there. We also can see the Merced River. This is Nevada Falls. And if you kind of follow the Merced River here, you will see that here we will have our Emerald Pool, and then there are Vernal Falls, right? So one waterfall and then another waterfall. And here is Nevada Falls information. This one almost 600 feet. Here we go, Nevada Falls. Beautiful. All right. Very good.
It appears that Hetch Hetchy Valley, far from being a plain, common, rock-bound meadow, as many who have not seen it seem to suppose, is a grand landscape garden, one of nature's rarest and most precious mountain temples. As in Yosemite, the sublime rocks of its walls seem to glow with life, whether leaning back in repose or standing erect in thoughtful attitudes, giving welcome to storms and calms alike, their brows in the sky, their feet set in the groves and gay flowery meadows, while birds, bees, and butterflies help the river and waterfalls to stir all the air into music, things frail and fleeting and types of permanence meeting here and blending, just as they do in Yosemite, to draw her lovers into close and confiding communion with her.
All right, and so once again we are experiencing very poetic language of John Muir when he describes the Hetch Hetchy Valley, and he advocates for the valley and says that people who have never been there think that this is simply a rock-bound meadow, but this is not accurate description of the valley. According to John Muir, this valley is a grand landscape garden, one of nature's rarest and most precious mountain temples. So there is a comparison with the temple. And look at the poetic description here. As in Yosemite, the sublime rocks of its wall seems to glow with life. It's not just there is life there. The walls of the valley are glowing with life. So whether leaning back in repose or standing erect in thoughtful attitude, giving welcome to storms and comes alive. And so here's a description of the grand walls. Look how poetic it is. Their brows are in the sky, their feet set in groves and flowery meadows, while birds, bees, butterflies helps the river and water to stir all the air into music, right? So there is this commotion of nature. We have birds, bees, and butterflies creating sounds, water creating sounds. Everything is blended to form a musical tune.
Sad to say, this most precious and sublime feature of the Yosemite National Park, one of the greatest of all our natural resources for the uplifting joy and peace and health of the people, is in danger of being dammed and made into a reservoir to help supply San Francisco with water and light, thus flooding it from wall to wall and burying its gardens and groves 100 or 200 feet deep. This grossly destructive commercial scheme has long been planned and urged, though water as pure and abundant can be got from sources outside of the People's Park, in a dozen different places, because of the comparative cheapness of the dam and of the territory which it is sought to divert from the great uses to which it was dedicated in the Act of 1890 establishing the Yosemite National Park.
So obviously, in this paragraph, John Muir expresses that this is just unthinkable to submerge all this beauty of magnificent Hetch Hetchy Valley under the water, just to help to supply San Francisco with water and light, right? So, in the opinion of John Muir, San Francisco should look for a different source of water. He doesn't deny San Francisco right to water, but it's supposed to be outside of People's Park. He reminds that the law of 1890 establishes the Yosemite National Park, and Hetch Hetchy Valley is part of the national park.
The making of gardens and parks goes on with civilization all over the world, and they increase both in size and number as their value is recognized. Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and cheer and give strength to. John Muir Hetchy Valley 7 I body and soul alike. This natural beauty hunger is made manifest in the little windowsill gardens of the poor, though perhaps only a geranium slip in a broken cup, as well as in the carefully tended rose and lily gardens of the rich, the thousands of spacious city parks and botanical gardens, and in our magnificent national parks the Yellowstone, Yosemite, Sequoia, etc. nature's sublime wonderlands, the admiration and joy of the world. Nevertheless, like anything else worthwhile, from the very beginning, however well guarded, they have always been subject to attack by despoiling gain-seekers and mischief-makers of every degree from Satan to senators, eagerly trying to make everything immediately and selfishly commercial, with schemes disguised in smug smiling philanthropy, industriously, champiously crying, conservation, conservation, panutilization, that man and beast may be fed and the dear nation made great. Thus long ago a few enterprising merchants utilized the Jerusalem temple as a place of business instead of a place of prayer, changing money, buying and selling cattle and sheep and doves, and earlier still, the first forest reservation, including only one free, was likewise despoiled. Ever since the establishment of the Yosemite National Park, strife has been going on around its borders, and I suppose this will go on as part of the universal battle between right and wrong, however much its boundaries may be shorn, or its wild beauty destroyed.
This paragraph is extremely powerful, and here is a famous expression of John Muir. Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play and pray in, where nature may heal and cheer and grieve and give strength to body and soul alike. So here we go. There is also a big criticism here of the commercial ideas when the nature has to be harnessed by any possible means. And also John Muir describes the importance of this American idea of national park. And so because we have this disparity of incomes and backgrounds in this country, in 1800s, but we still have it in 2000s. There are some people who cannot afford to have a backyard, right? Not everybody can have their own garden. And some people have only a little windowsill, and all they can have is a geranium in a slip of a broken cup, right? And then obviously we have very rich people who can, afford to have a rosarium, and even hire a gardener to take care of their plants. We also have city parks and botanical gardens, which belong to everybody who are citizens of a particular city. But probably the greatest idea is inside of our national parks, such as the Yellowstone, the Yosemite National Park, the Sequoia, etc., etc. And because the national park belongs to all Americans, independently of the level of wealth, and it can be visited by both rich and poor people, and equally enjoy and people can equally enjoy the national parks because it belongs to all of them, and the national park can help to heal the body and soul alike. However, again, there is a strong criticism here of the commercial activities that can compromise the national treasure. And so John Muir, talking about various types of gain seekers that could vary in every degree from Satan to senators, so that try to pursue enrichment in a selfish commercial way, look at this, so that man and beast may be fed and the dear nation made great, right? So just look at this one more time, right? The dear nation made great, right? Does this sound familiar? It does sound familiar to me very much. I think one famous politician is talking about making America great again, but I don't think that America is great again. Like, look what is happening now with all those protests. That's not a sign of greatness, right? But again, the book is written in 1800s, right? So, very influential book by John Muir. We are going to continue reading.
The first application to the government by the San Francisco supervisors for the commercial use of Lake Eleanor and the Hetch Hetchy Valley was made in 1903, and on December 22 of that year it was denied by the Secretary of the Interior, Mr. Hitchcock, who truthfully said, presumably the Yosemite National Park was created such by law because of the natural objects of varying degrees of scenic importance located within its boundaries, inclusive alike of its beautiful small lakes, like Eleanor, and its majestic wonders, like Hetch Hetchy and Yosemite Valley. It is the aggregation of such natural scenic features that makes the Yosemite Park a wonderland which the Congress of the United States sought by law to reserve for all coming time as nearly as practicable in the condition fashioned by the hand of the Creator, a worthy object of national pride and a source of healthful pleasure and rest for the thousands of people who may annually sojourn there during the heated months.
Alright, and so here's a description of the process when the first application by the city of San Francisco was denied, and the person who denied this application was the Secretary of Interior at that time, Mr. Hitchcock. And you remember that during President Teddy Roosevelt, pretty much the project could not go forward. And the interesting thing about President Roosevelt that obviously he clearly was a conservationist, right? And according to conservationists, people needs are first. And so, according to conservation point of view, you should grant the city of San Francisco the permit. But just think about the wisdom of President Roosevelt. He was a conservationist and he had his own belief how the things need to be handled. But he put the interests of the entire nation, after listening to John Muir, he put the interests of the entire nations, above his own beliefs. Even he was a conservationist, he, in this particular instant, behaved as a preservationist because he strongly believes that the American people need Yosemite National Park. And I wish our contemporary politicians were able to put, their own interests and their own beliefs behind and think about the needs of the people first. And I also would like to show you the beautiful Lake Eleanor, which is described in this paragraph. There are many alpine lakes in the Sierra Nevada mountains area, and we will visit one of those beautiful lakes, Lake Eleanor. Alright, so let's fly to the Lake Eleanor. Lake Eleanor. You can see some neighboring lakes there. And I wonder if I can drop my little person to see Lake Eleanor. Yeah, it looks like I can go over here. Okay, so it looks like I am right next to the Lake Eleanor. Oh, here is my beautiful lake. Look at the water, how transparent and how clean it is. And all these ancient trees that surround the Lake Eleanor. and people are enjoying the view of the lake. And I think there was another observation point there. So let me see. Okay, I think I can drop my person maybe here. It's like, looks like this is in the middle of the lake. Or maybe not. Oh, this is a bridge. Okay, I got it. There's a bridge. Oh, look at these colors. It's just amazing. Sun, blue sky, and oh, this is either a bridge or some type of a road, right? Okay, nice. Lake Eleanor. Lake Eleanor is a reservoir located in the northwest backcountry of Yosemite National Park. Alright, so there's a picture of Lake Eleanor. Lake Eleanor, elevation 4,659 feet. Very nice. Beautiful. Alright, so let's continue reading.
That anyone would try to destroy such a place seems incredible, but said experience shows that there are people good enough and bad enough for anything. The proponents of the dam scheme bring forward a lot of bad arguments to prove that the only righteous thing to do with the people's parks is to destroy them bit by bit as they are able. Their arguments are curiously like those of the devil, devised for the destruction of the first garden, so much of the very best eaten fruit going to waste, so much of the best Tuolumne water and Tuolumne scenery going to waste. Few of their statements are even partly true, and all are misleading. Thus, Hetch Hetchy, they say, is a low-lying meadow. On the contrary, it is a MGH-lying natural landscape garden, as the photographic illustrations show. It is a common minor feature, like thousands of others. On the contrary, it is a very uncommon feature, after Yosemite, the rarest and in many ways the most important in the national park.
Alright, so obviously John Muir is just devastating that somebody has even a thought of flooding this treasure, Hetch Hetchy Valley. He really compares the commercial interest to the action of the devil that destroyed the first garden, the Garden of Eden. So it's a very, very, very strong comparison by John Muir. He also argues people who say that Hetch Hetchy is a low-lying meadow, that it is not very unique. He said that this is a really beautiful and unique area, which is unlike any other area in California. And now we are going to continue reading.
Damming and submerging it 175 feet deep would enhance its beauty by forming a crystal clear lake. Landscape gardens, places of recreation and worship, are never made beautiful by destroying and burying them. The beautiful Shem Lake, forsooth, would be only an eyesore, a dismal blot on the landscape, like many others to be seen in the Sierra. 4. Instead of keeping it at the same level all the year, allowing nature centuries of time to make new shores, I would, of course, be full only a month or two in the spring, when the snow is melting fast, then it would be gradually drained, exposing the slimy sides of the basin and shallower parts of the bottom, with the gathered drift and waste, death, and decay of the upper basins, caught here instead of being swept onto decent natural burial along the banks of the river or in the sea. Thus the Hetch Hetchy Dam Lake would be only a rough imitation of a natural lake for a few of the spring months, an open sepulchre for the others.
What we observe in this paragraph is another example of very powerful, very straightforward thinking by John Muir and his strong arguments. So first of all, he says that when proponents of the construction project say that they will create a beautiful crystal clear lake that would be even superior to any natural creation, John Muir said, look, landscape gardens, places of recreation and worship, are never made beautiful by destroying and burying them, right? No matter how beautiful, the thing and important the thing that you're going to erect here will be, you are actually ruining the nature's precious temple. Alright, and so now we are back to the three-dimensional view of the Lake Eleanor. And when we are enjoying this scenery, I would like you to think about the meaning of the words of John Muir. He said, and I'm going to repeat that, landscape gardens, places of recreation and worship, are never made beautiful by destroying and burying them. So, and personally to me, when I think about what John Muir writes here in relationship to Hetch Hetchy Valley and what happened to it, I think about many other examples when places of worship or recreation were destroyed for some big ideas, right? They were destroyed because somebody thought that a lot greater public benefit will be obtained by using the area in a different way, right? So in case of Hetch Hetchy Valley, the city of San Francisco say, well, who cares about the scenery? We need water, and we have to go and we have to get water, and we have to construct the dam and artificial lake, and this is more important than the beauty of the national park, right? So the public interest kind of flipped from the feet to the head. But that happened in history many, many times before. And I would like to actually take you to a different continent. I would like to take you to Europe. And I would like to show you a beautiful Orthodox cathedral, which is called the Cathedral of Christ the Savior, which is the tallest Orthodox church in Europe. And this church is located in Moscow, Russia. So let's fly there from Lake Eleanor. So I'm going to close this and we will travel to Russia. Off we go. Our next spot, Russia. It's a beautiful cathedral, so I'm gonna drop my little person so he could enjoy the view. All right, so this is Moscow River. And we are going to try to descend. So I'm gonna put my person on the street level, or maybe over here. Here we go, this is a street view. And here's the magnificent cathedral, the tallest Orthodox church in Europe. Quite impressive. I could possibly pick a different observation spot, maybe over here. Okay, there are some type of plants obstructing the view here. Looks like I am in the middle of the flower bed. Let me get out of the flower bed. I will try one more time. So where would be a good spot? Well, how about over here? No. Okay, over here. All right, lots of people visiting the cathedral. Very good. Alright, so I'm back to the panoramic view, and let's take a look over here. Alright, the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Russia is a Russian Orthodox cathedral in Moscow, on the northern bank of Moskva River, a few hundred meters southwest of Kremlin. And let's look. It's an absolutely magnificent cathedral, huge. And this is what it's look like inside. Very, very beautiful, lots of icons, lots of gold, and obviously, as we mentioned, this is the tallest Orthodox church in Europe. And now let's think why I'm showing this church and how this church relates to what John Muir wrote in The Mountains of California. So this is the second reincarnation of this church. This is actually a very old church. But after the 1917 revolution in Russia, and also when Joseph Stalin came to power, the religious people were actually kind of not appreciated. And the religion was separated from the state, but this by itself wasn't very, wrongful thing to do. Like in the United States, the religion and the state are separated also. But the thing is that communists destroyed a lot of cathedrals, including this magnificent cathedral. And so pretty much the idea was that people shouldn't go to church, and there is no need to have a cathedral for people to visit in the middle of Moscow. And so a lot more important was, for example, for Russians to be very healthy and, be a good warriors, etc. So the physical education was kind of encouraged. And so the idea was to destroy this temple and to build an outdoor swimming pool that would enhance the health of Russian citizens. And pretty much the explosives were loaded under the cathedral, and it was blown out, so it was demolished completely, this beautiful piece of architecture. And on an exact the same location, a humongous outdoor swimming pool was constructed, which is called Moscow swimming pool. And at that time, the swimming pool was the largest outdoor swimming pool in the world. Alright, so here's a historic photograph of the Moscow outdoor swimming pool. I think this picture was taken in 1980. And so now think about the words of John Muir. So the John Muir words are: landscape gardens, places of recreation and worship, are never made beautiful by destroying and burying them. And so in this example, a beautiful Orthodox temple, a beautiful Orthodox church, the cathedral, has been detonated and replaced with a swimming pool, right? This act didn't make the cathedral beautiful, it just demolished it. And the same thing by constructing a dam and flooding the Hetch Hetchy Valley, the Hetch Hetchy Valley beauty could not be enhanced because actually the valley would be flooded and destroyed. And most recently in Moscow, everything has been reversed. So this public swimming pool was demolished, and the cathedral was reconstructed. So like if you go as a tourist to Moscow right now, I know it's not possible because of coronavirus restrictions, but if you could go there right now, the cathedral is there, it's restored, right? So Russians learned the lesson. Will we learn our own lesson? Are we going to restore Hetch Hetchy Valley? That's a big question. Another important idea here about this crystal clear lake. First of all, John Muir calls this lake a sham lake. So if you think about this comparison, like think about a pillow sham. This is usually something you put on top of the pillow to make it beautiful. So usually we don't sleep on the sham pillow. It's more for decorating of your bedroom, of your bed, of your bedroom. However, the sham hides the pillow, and the pillow can be beautiful by itself, but you can't see it if you put a sham over it. And therefore, John Muir says, no matter how beautiful this artificial crystal lake could be, it will be a sham lake. It will hide the natural beauty of the valley under the water. And another big idea here, John Muir says, you know what, this is not gonna be a beautiful crystal clear lake, because when we have low rain season and it's hot, the water is gonna evaporate, and this will expose the slimy walls, the slimy sides of the basin, right? Which actually will show us the examples of decay. And so therefore this lake will be only beautiful for part of the year, and the rest of the year it's actually will look pretty ugly. So as an open sepulcher for the rest of the season where the water is low. So let's finish reading, and there will be some other very strong paragraphs here.
Hetch Hetchy water is the purest of all to be found in the Sierra, unpolluted, and forever unpollutable. On the contrary, excepting that of the Merced below Yosemite, It is less pure than that of most of the other Sierra streams, because of the sewerage of campgrounds draining into it, especially of the Big Tuolumne Meadows campground, occupied by hundreds of tourists and mountaineers, with their animals, for months every summer, soon to be followed by thousands from all the world. These temple destroyers, devotees of ravaging commercialism, seem to have a perfect contempt for nature, and, instead of lifting their eyes to the God of the mountains, lift them to the almighty dollar. Damn Hetch Hetchy. As well damn for water tanks the people's cathedrals and churches, for no holier temple has ever been consecrated by the heart of man.
Alright, so let's read it again and let's think about it. Alright, so he's talking about conservationists that would like to take over a part of national park. So these temple destroyers, remember, Hetch Hetchy Valley is a nature precious temple. So these temple destroyers, devotees of ravaging commercialism, seems to have a perfect contempt for nature. And instead of lifting their eyes to the God of the mountains, they lift them to the almighty dollar. So, isn't it familiar? Does it sound familiar? Think about all these energy companies that finance the climate change denial campaigns because they're lifting their eyes to the almighty dollar. They don't want to lose their business. They're not interested in developing alternative sources of energy. And that's why they finance those campaigns that trying to convince people that global warming isn't happening, right? So the history kind of repeats itself. And another very famous expression by John Muir, let's just think about it. Damn Hetch Hetchy, as well damn for the water tanks, the papal cathedrals and churches, for no holier temple has ever been consecrated by the heart of man. Very powerful writing. Alright, so this is a beautiful cathedral that Russians has restored. So we are going to travel from Russia back to the United States. So from the Cathedral of Christ the Savior, we would like to go to Hetch Hetchy Valley that has not been restored yet. So let's do that. And we're gonna land on O'Shaughnessy Dam. That actually is the problem right here. O'Shaughnessy Dam is 430-foot high concrete arch gravity dam in Tuolumne County, California, United States. So it impounds the Tuolumne River, forming the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir at the lower end of Hetch Hetchy Valley in Yosemite National Park, approximately 160 miles of San Francisco, east of San Francisco. And this is what the dam looks like. Behind the dam is the artificial lake that flooded the valley, and we can see those waterfalls which are not accessible anymore. Right, and this is a rainbow. Well, what do you prefer, a concrete dam or natural valley? These are the diversion channels that were blasted into granite walls as part of the construction project. And these are also diversion channels. You can walk at the top of the dam. And this is quote unquote beautiful crystal clear lake. It doesn't really look anything like a crystal clear lake at all to me. Alright, and another view of the dam. And again, artificial lake over here. Well, I guess this picture isn't too bad, but it does look kind of unnatural. Alright, and I would like to go to 3D view of the dam. Here's the Tuolumne River that has been dammed. We see the artificial lake behind the dam, the flooded valley. And I wonder if I can drop a little person somewhere. Oh, there are some spots here, huh? Well, how about we will stand over here? It looks like we are at the top of the dam. This is as far as we can get. One side is a flooded valley view, and another side is the Tuolumne River that continues flowing beyond the point of the concrete dam. So here we go. A lot of things we can think about. What is more important? Can we correct mistakes of the past? Or we shouldn't bother? This is all what I wanted to tell you about the book by John Muir. If you have questions, you know how to get in touch with me. And I will talk to you soon.